This is Dan White with my preview of the Miami and Virginia Tech game in Blacksburg, Virginia on October the 15th, 2022 at 12:30. I'm in the woods behind my house in Appling, Georgia. Miami has been lost in the woods after 3 straight losses, and it's a dark and dreary afternoon which matches my mood. Miami has had 12 losing seasons of at least 3 games in the past 16 years. The Hurricanes are 108-81 with a 57.1 winning percentage during that span, averaging 7.1 wins in the previous 15 seasons. Cristobal's 2-3 start at the University of Miami is also not uncommon. Al Golden and Manny Diaz began 2-3. Butch Davis was 1-3 in 1995 before going on an 11-game winning streak. Snellenberger was also 2-3 in his first year in 1979. In Blacksburg, Miami is 8-8 all time and has won 3 of their last 4 trips there since 2014. Hopefully, Miami can find their way out of the woods in Blacksburg this Saturday at 12:30. The game will be broadcast on the Regions Sports Network, RSN, and ESPN3. Search your cable provider to see if they carry RSN. Also, you can download the ESPN app and search for the game there. Now, let's take a look at Virginia Tech coach Brent Pry. He previously served as the defensive coordinator at Penn State from 2016 to 2021 under Coach James Franklin. In 2018, his Penn State defense led the country in sacks per game with 3.62. They finished 4th in tackles for loss at 8.2. They had 13 interceptions and allowed a stingy 53.6 completion rate. In 2019, Pry's defense finished the season ranked 8th nationally in scoring defense, holding opponents to only 16 points per game. They were 5th nationally in rushing defense of 95 yards per game. They were 1st in the nation in forced fumbles with 22 and 7th in sacks with 45 and a 3.46 per game average. He played college football for the Buffalo Bulls. Virginia Tech's current record is 2-4. I guess you could call this game the Bummer Bowl. Pry has had several coaching stops. Most notably, he was assistant head coach at Louisiana Lafayette from 2002 to 2006, helping the Ragin' Cajuns to their first Sun Belt championship in 2005. As defensive line coach at Memphis from 2007 to 2009, he molded the defensive line there in 2008 into one of Conference USA's best. He was assistant head coach at Vanderbilt from 2011 to 2013, assistant coach at Penn State from 2014 to 2021, and now he's the head coach for the Hokies. He has a 2-4 record as head coach. Pry has been around football all his life. His father played for Marshall and is a longtime college coach. He was an all-region quarterback and defensive back for Lexington, Virginia High School. Pry suffered a career-ending injury in 1991 playing for Buffalo, and that injury started his coaching career. He became a graduate assistant for the Bulls. Pry was named head coach for Virginia Tech on November 30th, 2021, replacing Justin Fuente, who had a 74-43 record in his 6 years there. So what's going to happen this Saturday at Lane Stadium? Here's what Yahoo Sports writer Pete Fiatak wrote. It's like these two teams don't know how to put the puzzle together. The two new head coaches are going to need a little while. Brent Pry's Hokies don't have any one thing that they can do well, not even one. But one big win could flip the switch. But, he said, it ain't happening this week. Their offense is ranked number 113 and 120th in yards per play at 4.47 yards per play. Here are some comparative statistics between key players. VT's quarterback, Grant Wells, has completed 120 passes on 204 attempts for 1,300 yards. That's a 58.8% completion rate. He averages 6.2 yards per completion. His long is 43 yards. He's thrown for 6 touchdowns against 7 interceptions and has been sacked 7 times. For Miami, Tyler Van Dyke has passed for 1,325 yards. He's completed 112 passes on 175 attempts for a completion percentage rate of 64. TVD is averaging 7.5 yards per completion. His long is 52 yards, and he's thrown for 7 touchdowns against 4 interceptions. He's been sacked 8 times. Virginia Tech's leading rusher is Keyshawn King. He's rushed 43 times for 257 yards for an average of 6 yards per rush, and he has 2 touchdowns. Overall, Tech has 673 rushing yards this season for a 3.2 average. Their longest run is 65 yards, which was by King. Their rushing attack has scored 7 touchdowns. Now for Miami, Ole Miss transfer Henry Parrish Jr. is our leading rusher with 378 yards on 78 attempts for an average of 4.8 yards per rush. His longest run is 24 yards, and he has 4 touchdowns. Overall, Miami has 756 yards rushing on 189 carries for a 4-yard average with 11 touchdowns. Thad Franklin leads the Canes with 5 touchdowns. Oh, he's a bruiser. The leading receiver for the Hokies is Caleb Smith. He has 25 receptions for 402 yards for an average of 16 yards per catch, and he has 2 touchdowns. Overall, Tech has 126 receptions for 1,323 yards, which is an average of 10.5 yards per catch, and they have 6 touchdowns. For Miami, tight end Will Mallory is our leading receiver with 20 receptions for 242 yards. He's averaging 12.2 yards per reception and has no touchdowns. His longest reception went for 31 yards. Sophomore Keyshawn Smith and Henry Parrish Jr. lead the team in touchdown receptions with 2. Smith has 12 receptions for 192 yards and averages 12.1 yards per catch. His longest reception is 39 yards. Overall, Miami has 131 receptions for 1,577 yards with a 12-yard average with 7 touchdowns. The longest reception went for 52 yards. On defense, senior linebacker Dax Hollifield is their leading tackler. Hollifield has 20 solo tackles for Virginia Tech, 27 assists, 1 sack, and he's disrupted 3 passes. Overall, their defense has 11 sacks and 2 interceptions. On defense, Miami has 15 sacks. Sophomore defensive lineman Jafari Harvey leads the team in sacks with 2.5, followed by linebacker Corey Flagg Jr. with 1.5. Flagg leads the team with 18 solo tackles and 12 assists for a total of 30. He's among the leaders in the ACC in tackles for loss. Safety Cameron Kitchens leads the defense with 3 interceptions. Miami has four interceptions total. Mario Cristobal's Hurricanes are way overdue to come up with something big. Miami's defense will keep Virginia Tech from running, and quarterback Wells won't be able to do enough to keep the attack moving, in my opinion. The key for Virginia Tech's defense is to sustain success for 4 quarters. They tend to start strong and fade as the game progresses. That could be a conditioning issue. It could be just that the talent disparity showing up on the field as more plays are run. Or it could be game planning and coaching adjustments by the coaches. That could be the problem. Miami's big problem, as you all know, is giving up chunk plays. They've allowed 18.6 plays to go for 10 yards or more, which is 99th in the country. On the other hand, they've allowed 4 or more yards on 44.2% of plays, which is 24th in the nation. Miami has been able to pick up plenty of first downs. 88.4% of their drives have gotten at least 1 first down. But here's the problem. Just 20.9% have ended in touchdowns, and that's 93 in the country. Miami's 3-game slide will stop in Blacksburg. That's what I predict. That's what I hope. The Hokies are significant underdogs. They're the 97th team in the country, according to the Freemal Efficiency Index, the FEI. So this would take a monumental effort for them to win. Yahoo Sports predicts Miami 30, Virginia Tech 17. Miami has the opportunity to spoil Virginia Tech's homecoming. Let's go Canes! Just do it. Spoil their homecoming. How dare them schedule Miami for a homecoming game? That would have never happened in the past. Now, here's a clip from Hokies coach Brent Pry, followed by Coach Cristobal in discussing Saturday's game. I want to thank you for watching. I appreciate it so very much. And let me close again by saying, go Canes. And here's the presser from Coach Brent Pry.
Yeah, I don't have much. As always, I want to thank the fans for coming out to Pittsburgh. I thought it was a good turnout for the Hokies. You know, we're obviously excited about homecoming this weekend and having Miami here. Maroon effect and sold-out crowd. So, you know, the guys are excited. We started talking Miami post-game in the locker room and, you know, anxious to get rolling. So, had a good couple of days, Sunday, Monday. Questions?
I'm curious, when you watch the film on the run defense, it seemed like there were a lot of plays where you got them for negative yards, 1 yard,
Yeah.
2 yards, and then a bunch where they go 30, sometimes 80. Why such a drastic difference from play to play, and what did you see with that?
Yeah, really 3 things. I mean, I think when you look at when you don't defend the run very well, were they just more physical, and did you just not match up, and did you have problems, you know, just going toe-to-toe? And that wasn't the case. There's quite a good number of snaps with good fits and good tackling. I mean, you take the first series, for example. But I think we had 11 TFLs, which is a good day. But we had some issues in execution that against a back that can run, he got out on us. And when you got a back that can run, you got to be able to run everywhere else defensively. Speed became a factor. I don't agree with runs, going the distance. I think your secondary, it's their responsibility to get guys on the ground when one breaks, when there is an execution error. So we got to be better there. Some of it was angles and speed, and then we missed a couple of tackles that I think were critical that led to explosive runs. Um, and then as I mentioned post game, anytime you let the ball outside your defense, you got issues, and we didn't edge the defense well enough. So it was a combination of things, and to be honest, once again, it's things we're able to fix, and we showed the kids on the video. Here's us doing it correctly, and look at the results. Here's us not doing it the way we need to, and look at the results. So I think it's if we learn from it, um, I think it was after watching the film, it was the deciding factor in the game. The inability to minimize the explosive runs. So, I think we made the message clearly with the guys on Sunday, and I expect improvement there. We were just talking today defensively. We were watching some Penn State film and against Josh Gaddis in Michigan, and you got guys playing in the structure that had been in it 3, 4, and even 5 years, playing the same defense, being coached by the same guy, same techniques, and the value in that, how much faster you can play and how much cleaner you can play. So, but so I think it's live and learn, right? And you grow and develop. I think there's a level of excitement with Miami coming to town, with it being a home game, big crowd. I mean, homecoming. So there's a level of excitement that I think our guys are really looking forward to, yes. You know, would we like to be playing better defense? Of course. But, yeah, obviously, we'd like to be a little cleaner fielding those punts. DJ was nursing, excuse me, a minor injury. He wasn't able to have a full week of practice, so we'd been interested in seeing what Jaden could do anyways, so it gave us the opportunity to do that. And we're kind of going to take a look at it through the week here to decide who will field punts for us Saturday.
Coach, you talked a little while ago about the tackling technique, or after the game, about you didn't like some of the technique that they were using, and that might have cost. Has there been some regression since camp, or is it fatigue, or is there something else that's led to that here, especially in the Pittsburgh game?
I think it's a couple of things. I think we talked Sunday. We lose our focus a little bit as the game goes on. Some of it's fatigue, some of it's just the wear and tear. But so if you don't sink your hips, right, and you don't bend your knees, and you try and tackle high, it's not a good fit. Your chances of making that tackle aren't near as good. You got guys sticking arms out instead of getting body on body. Things you got to take that extra step to get in position to make a good tackle, especially when you're trying to tackle good people, which the running back was a good back. And and so I think it's a combination of being able to maintain great body position, great fits, all those things. We had several examples where we've made those tackles and we didn't make them Saturday. And I'll give the back credit to some degree, but also when you look at the film and we're not in the position that's necessary, we don't have our knees bent, we don't have our eyes up, we don't take that extra step. It makes it that much tougher to get a guy on the ground. So we talked about it, we watched several clips together as a defense, and then we obviously it'll be emphasized in practice today. They did a good job. They came back and swung the momentum, but we got to do a better job. A couple of big run plays added by a personal foul, a frustration foul, and just things we got to fit those runs better, and we got to eliminate foolish penalties.
Coach, you're halfway through your first season. How are you feeling?
Yeah, feeling good. Obviously we'd like to have a few more wins in the win column, but I feel good about the progress we're making. There's nothing discouraging about the team. I mean, they're responding, They're growing, they're developing, they're positive. The culture's in a good place. The staff's working their butt off. Support's been great. Yeah, so we feel pretty good about the direction of things. It's not to say we're disappointed. We obviously are. It's not to say that we're not, but when you look at the positives, they're important positives that you have to move forward. And there's a lot of those things in place that
And now here's the presser from Coach Mario Cristobal.
Prepping for our first conference road game, and certainly back to work. So that being said, questions, please.
Mario, you mentioned on Saturday that Tyreek was in protocol. I assume that's concussion protocol. Is that right?
Well, we don't disclose exactly what type of protocols that we do have, but he's being evaluated, and we'll know shortly his availability.
What were the biggest factors to you in the running game, only producing 42 yards?
Well, I think they did a good job up front. I think some holes we missed, some holes we didn't produce. And then we saw some things in the passing game that we really liked. The quarterback was hot, the receivers were catching the ball, and we were moving the ball. We weren't as productive in the red zone like we needed to be, but we felt that the passing game was working, so we stuck with it.
Speaking on the passing game, Colby Young had a tremendous drive, 3 catches and a touchdown late. Can you just talk about the factors for him, being able to get on the field and contribute, and what you see for him moving forward?
Well, 2 things. He's earned it. He's been here not a very long time, so he had a lot of catching up to do, both getting in physical condition and then learning the playbook. But to his credit, he's a tough guy, smart guy who has a super high care factor. But you saw his speed and his strength, and again, his natural ability to catch the football. Made a couple of really big plays, so he has earned himself, obviously, some more playing time. Really excited about him in his future.
Mario, Justice and Ja'Kai, how are they doing? It seemed that Justice's injury was maybe more significant. Are they expected to play Saturday? What's that situation?
Don't know yet, but you are correct in saying that. Justice seemed more significant. Ja'Kai not as badly as him, but again, evaluations, medical and treatment, all that kind of stuff, and we'll know as the week goes on.
Any chance Zion plays this week?
Don't know that yet.
Mario, I listened to your radio interview this morning. It sounded like I don't know, challenge the team is the right word, but with 3 losses in a row, how have they kind of responded to just this point in the season, kind of where you guys are at and that kind of difficulties?
Exactly the way we expect them to. We're establishing a certain DNA and a culture, and the lumps that come with it are part of it, and we're here for that. So we challenge our team on a weekly basis, and that's never going to change. When we're in, and we're going to be in very tight games, competitive games, and these games come down to details of, you name it, alignment, assignment, eye discipline, communication, right? All those things come into play. Technique, right? A holding penalty can be attributed to being off the ball late, a poor step, poor half position. All of a sudden you got a natural poor reaction, a tug on a guy. Or eye discipline, and sometimes not seeing or not keeping an intent focus on your particular job can lead to a bad play that ends up hurting you from a win-loss standpoint. So those are the challenges that we're going to keep throwing on our guys. We want to increase our capacity to take on responsibility and obligation at an elite level. And that's what we want to work towards.
In your experience, how many talent acquisition cycles does it take to get a roster where you want it from a talent and depth perspective? That's for
a sit down. That requires a sit down situation. I always liken it to the different places I've had the opportunity to be a part of. We went to an FIU program that was 0-12 and hadn't won a game, and 3 years later won a conference championship. We went to Oregon when they were 4-8, and 2 years later winning the Rose Bowl, being a top 5 team. But in Alabama, where the talent was really coming in, but then it really ramped up. I think that's for a sit down, assessing exactly where you are and where you want to be, because it's 2 different ways you got to develop the players on your football team while you continue the influx of talent, elite level, elite caliber talent, which I think is exciting in 2 different ways, because we are progressing and certain guys are certainly developing, and then I think it's also very obvious that some areas are stronger than others, so there's going to be tremendous opportunity here like, I don't know, I guess like in the way that history repeats itself, right? Name it, whether it be 81, whether it be 87, 91, 94, 99, right? It just, so, and we feel like we're making progress.
Do you think that the portal can speed up that process at all, or is it still kind of boiled down to high school recruiting and that just takes time?
I think all focus just has to be on the right here, right now. You know, I think recruiting will never stops, right? It goes throughout the course of the season, in the off season. There really is no such thing as a vacation. I think your portal additions, as well as your subtractions, have to be very strategic, right? There has to be a good reason for taking someone that's in the portal, and there also has to be a good reason for facilitating, you know, a guy that you might have on your roster to get in the portal as well, right? It's strictly business, right? You got to make sure you're doing right by the program, right by the players, that you're having honesty and transparency and the kind of conversations that lead to betterment for everybody. But certainly, let's call it what it is, talent acquisition is very different now because of the portal. You see the difference it's made in our defensive line, right? You'd love to be able to have time more than a couple weeks and months to be able to do that, just, you know, broad base right across the entire roster.
Speaking of portal guys from the defensive line, Hakeem Mesidor is having, I think he's third in the country among edge rushers right now. How has he kind of lived up to what your expectations were entering the season?
Well, I mean, we knew he was an excellent player when he became available. We were all over it, and a little bit to your point, I think Miami needs to be a roster full of players like that produce at that level, right? And that's development, and that's continued work, and that's continued progress within our schemes. We have a lot of guys that are getting better. Certainly he's one of them that's improving, and through recruiting as well, that's the aim, that's the goal. He's a great example for our guys of how to do it and do it the right way. He's been, the best part about him is his toughness. If you get a chance, throw on the film and take a real hard and deep dive at how physical he plays and the effort he plays with. And he has been banged up, he's been healthy, he's fought through all of it, and he just keeps going. I mean, that guy is a true warrior, an excellent football player, and even a better person.
Mario, you guys had a lot of recruits, obviously, at the last game, commitments, and kids that are interested in the program. Just what's been your message to them, you know, after this kind of tough start on the field, and what are they kind of reciprocating to you?
Oh, our message has never been anything but the truth and honesty. You know, we came here to be a part of what we feel is the best program always for us in the country, and certain things we have to build and certain things we're going to get better at sooner than later, and other things are going to take time, you know, but that all focuses on this season, our players. We certainly, if we make it a big point to make sure that they get to speak with our players so they know what the program is about, so they know that the work is real, so they know that the culture is real, so that they know that we are completely invested in making sure that every single day we make some kind of progress towards everything, towards winning, towards betterment in the classroom, towards betterment in them and their future, their development on the field as players, a team, their units, their position groups, all that stuff. So that's never going to change. We're very real, we're very passionate about the University of Miami, and you know, there's a reason that you know, things are going, you know, well recruited.
Coach, we've seen Nigel and Wesley, their roles, you know, steadily increasing. Can you tell us, talk about their progress, how they're doing as freshmen?
Yeah, you know, you wish they'd been here a couple of years. Those guys are really talented guys. With some of these positions and some of the opponents you play, sometimes things get a little bit more complex, and they've done a great job taking it in, so their roles will continue to increase, and they're playing faster, they're playing better. You're starting to see some of the things they show in practice, they're starting to show up on the field on game day as well. And then I think it's I'm proud of a guy like Nigel and Wesley both. Nigel was banged up, right, took a pretty good shot, and you couldn't keep him out of the game. He was right back up, ready to go back in. Those are traits, right? That's the type of DNA that we want to continue to foster and culture and nurture here at the University of Miami.
Mario, how much has the offensive line progressed, and how much are they part of the red zone struggles and goal line situations that occur Saturday? What do you think are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, we weren't good at the goal line. You know, we and credit to them. You know, they schemed it up when we moved the fullback over. The Mike plushed over, so he was able to shoot to the gap, and you know, that made it a tough run right there. And then you know, the sneak itself was more of a stalemate than it was push. So you know, we've got to do better in some regards. And then for the most part, with as many passes as we threw, they protected the quarterback fairly well. So we want to improve in everything that we do. Certainly we want to improve and increase our physicality as it relates to the run game. But there's a lot that goes to the run game, especially when a team does some of the things that they do. There's zone blocking or man blocking or gap scheming that goes with or is tied into a tight end or it's tied into an RPO. And we're out of sync right now. And I don't think it's one particular person or unit. We just got to, like we did with the passing game, and help that get better. We got to do the same with the run game.
Coach, you mentioned Nigel Deacon Wesley. Who are some of the other younger players, such as Jaleel Skinner, who have really started to emerge as you approach the midway point of the season?
Well, I think you mentioned Jaleel right there. He's a guy that continues to get better and better. Great tight end room. Guys like Will Mallory, Don Momorelli, Elijah Arroyo, they've all done a really good job helping him. Khalil Brownlee's done a really, really good job. I like to think that Colby Young is a young guy because he just hasn't played that much, right? Excuse me. I like to think Rashard Smith is another young guy. Only been here for a year plus and is coming on really, really strong. I guess it could go on and on because I know you guys probably view Cam and James as veterans, but they're only sophomores. So Leonard Taylor is a guy worth mentioning. Really played strong and getting better and changing his body and really committed himself to improvement. So I think guys like that have stood out. Inez Cooper's going to be a great one. He really is. Trevante was on his way to being really, really good until he got banged up. But we see flashes in Isaiah Horton. Challenged him this week to be accountable, to be trusted when it comes to game day. So we'll see what type of competitor we get tomorrow on the practice field, and sure could rattle off a few more.
Seems like it takes a little while for the team to get settled into a game for both sides of the ball for whatever reason. Is that nerves? Is it just takes a while to get into the game flow?
You always want to figure that out. I wish it came bottled up and you could just pour it out there and you know what you're going to get. So you work on everything. You want to make sure your team is revved up and mentally locked in, but not anxious, right? Anxiety is the killer of performance, peak performance for that matter. So, we really do spend a lot of time on mental preparation, on the psychological side of it. We feel that in so many ways we've improved the resiliency of our football team, but some of the things that come with a slow start, sometimes it's formational, right? I mean, every single time you play a team, there's going to be a wrinkle, right? There's going to be a new, adjustment that may take you a play, a series, hopefully not much longer than that, but sometimes it does take a quarter and a half to get adjusted and play at the level you're capable of. So we immediately get them to the sideline, settle down those eyes, those nerves, and we think the best way always to do that is get right back to focus, to technique, to fundamentals, and to assignment. Cut out all the other stuff. Don't let the mind drift. Social media ain't part of this. This is football, and everything you do on the field is going to make the difference.
A few more facts about Virginia Tech yet. They're 2-4, but sellout crowd's supposed to be there. Obviously, a loud place to play. What have you seen?
We all know the caliber of football coach and football players that Virginia Tech always has. It's epitomized in the way that they're coached and the way they train and the way they're hard-nosed, they're tough, they're explosive. They're in the top 10 in just about every defensive category regarding negative plays, regarding sacks, pressures, third down. I know they're number one in the ACC. So they present many challenges. They move and pressure on just about every single down. They give you all kinds of looks to try to bait your linemen and send them protection one way, come the other way. They challenge you to do a good job. They wire you up too in all your tight run schemes as well as your wide zone schemes. Offensively, they present a lot of challenges because formationally, assignment-wise, and explosive player-wise, they've got a great mix. And they do a really good job attacking the weaknesses of defenses. Last week, certainly, they scored a good amount of points and left a couple opportunities on the table. So we're very well aware of them. We know that they're a really good football team with really good football players. We're expecting a great challenge. 12:30 kickoff, our first test on the road. We got to be at our best. Okay.
Mario, Cam Kitchens having an excellent start to the year. How have you seen him kind of grow and develop into kind of this leader and this top player on the defense since you arrived?
We want more from Cam Kitchens because he's capable of more. Guys like that, their care factor is through the roof. He is a perfect example of a South Florida football player, product of the city of Miami. A guy that was an exceptional high school player and is doing a great job now at the collegiate level. And his voice has to continue to grow stronger and louder in the locker room and at a very young age. Sometimes it's unfair You know, when you're a team that's young in certain areas and needs some growth and needs some leadership, it's a little bit unfair sometimes, but it is what it is. Guys like that got to grow. You know, their presence has to be felt, their voice has to be heard. It's going to make the team better. It's going to galvanize us more. It's going to push us.
Corey Flagg is second in the ACC for tackle for loss. Talk to us about Corey Flagg and his season he's had.
This last game was one of his better games. You know, he takes a lot of pride in preparation. He's always in there watching film. He always takes the details. He knows that the devil's in the details. Formations, backfield alignments, splits by offensive lineman, weight forward, weight back, heel up in the air, toe pointed outward, splits by receivers. I mean, he points them out, he finds them. You see him getting guys aligned if he knows that they're misaligned. You see if there's a guy that doesn't quite know communication-wise what the call was or where they're supposed to be aligned, he gets them.
Hey, this is Dan White. This has been my Miami and Virginia Tech game preview, and thanks so much for watching. Go Canes!